Okay, hello, my friends. I have breaking news here. It is Saturday, April 19th. It is the day between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And there's breaking news that Putin just announced an Easter truce. Now, Russia claims that it will halt hostilities from 1800 on April 19th to essentially midnight on April 21st. So, let's talk about this. Now, this happened while I was actually putting together my three big stories. So I finished my three big stories, and I was actually explaining what the connection was of why the U.S. government was giving up on, like, hey, we're going to walk away from this. There's a clear connection here, and I talked about it. I'm not going to belabor that here. You can go back to that video after this if you want to see that. Now, I look at the news and I see, whoa, Putin's calling a truce. I think this is a pretty smart move on Putin's part. Let's talk about this. So Putin announces an Easter truce in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin announces a temporary Easter ceasefire in Ukraine, citing humanitarian reasons. Okay, so you could do that for those reasons. I'm not sure that he is doing it for those reasons, but okay, nonetheless, that's a good start. The announcement came on the same day as Russia's defense ministry said its forces pushed Ukrainian forces from one of their last remaining footholds in Russia's Kursk region. Well, you can't really believe what the official Russian state, government, military media says. You get a better sense of what's going on from Z bloggers, because they're, as much as they want Russia to succeed, they're more accurate, even if they're biased that direction. The ceasefire will last from 6 p.m. until midnight on Easter Sunday. Quote, here he is, "We assume that the Ukrainian side will follow our example." And he's talking to Gerasimov. I'm going to show you that picture, the image of him talking in just a minute, so I'm not going to read this paragraph. Zelensky called a ceasefire another attempt by Putin to play with human lives, and I'll show you that in just a moment as well. Putin's announcement came after U.S. President Donald Trump on Friday said that negotiations between Ukraine and Russia are coming to a head, and insisted that neither side is playing him in his push to end this grinding 3-year war. I showed you the image of Trump in the Oval Office saying that I'm not being played by anyone, and Trump was just saying yesterday, hey, look, if one side doesn't want to play ball, they're horrible people, and we'll just walk away. Well, he was, I think, referring to the Ukrainians, and I explained how that works. And this is a brilliant strategy by Putin right now. I'm not praising him, saying he's a good guy or anything. I'm saying this ceasefire is going to be used politically by Putin to say, see, we want to have a ceasefire, but then those Ukrainians, they violated this. And you're going to certainly see reports of the Russians saying Ukrainians violated the ceasefire. Okay. And it's unilateral. It's just him declaring it. So here is the actual image or the video of him doing this. Putin says Russian troops must brace for Ukraine's provocations during his so-called Easter truce. He just said it and expects Ukraine to live up to it. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But if they don't, or if he can fabricate something, then he can blame Ukraine for being the party that doesn't actually want peace, while he wants peace. And I tried to have a ceasefire on Easter of all days. Okay. Kremlin's clearly laying a groundwork to blame Kyiv. Expect a flurry of provocation claims soon to discredit Ukraine's peace efforts amid White House rhetoric. So here is Putin. Let's see what he has to say. He says, we assume that the Ukrainian side will follow our example. They don't have to. They haven't agreed to it. But let's say that they do. Maybe something will come of this. At the same time, our forces must be prepared to repel any violations of the ceasefire and provocations from the enemy. We are expecting that to happen. That's how those terrible Ukrainians are. After all, they are Russians who are just traitors to Russia. That's how it works. As well as any aggressive actions on their part. Now, he's talking to his chief general here in a stage-managed kind of way. None of this is ever a real conversation. It's all kind of scripted for show. Okay. As well as any aggressive actions on their part. We know that the Kyiv regime has violated the agreement not to strike energy infrastructure. What do you say here? Has violated the agreement not to strike over 100 times. Now, there's no possible way that that has actually happened. And from my count, it's not even that. What we do know is what Russia has done, violating, and like Ukraine agreed to a ceasefire pending Russia doing the same. And Russia said that they were going to do the same, but there was no actual final agreement. But Russia said, we're calling off our drones, and then hit stuff with drones immediately, like within the next hour. Okay, Russia violates, this was 2 days ago, Russia violates Trump's energy ceasefire more than 30 times. Ukraine's foreign ministry said 3 recent Russian attacks damaged power facilities in Mykolaiv and Kherson. That was 2 days ago I was showing you that. Okay, and not to strike, and they're claiming that Kyiv has done this over 100 times. I just haven't seen the evidence of it. I would have been reporting about each of these strikes. Okay, as you've reported to me. Okay, so that's the end of Putin talking here. Okay, what else do we need to see? Well, Zelensky put this out shortly thereafter. Zelensky on Putin's Easter truce. Just reported by Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky, our forces continued operations in Kursk Oblast today, holding their positions in Belgorod Oblast. Our troops advanced, expanding our zone of control. So right there, you have a little bit of a conflict between what's true and what's not. As for Putin's latest attempt to toy with people's lives, what's actually happening right now, he just declared the ceasefire. Air raid alerts are spreading across Ukraine right now at 5:15 p.m. Now, again, it's supposed to start at 6 o'clock. Okay, so let's be as fair as humanly possible. It's 5:15. It's not 6 o'clock. At 5:15 p.m., Russian attack drones were spotted in our skies. Ukrainian air defenses and aviation are already working to protect us. Shaheeds in our skies show Putin's true stance on Easter and human lives. Okay, maybe at 6 it all magically dries up and it'll stop, but I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think it's just setting Ukraine up for claims of violations. And here, War Translated has already shown this. As expected, Russian Z-bloggers and war correspondents have already started flooding the Russian info space with accusations against Ukraine, claiming that Kyiv has already started violating Putin's so-called Easter truce. Okay, so that's where we are with this whole idea of an Easter truce. I didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And, they should have planned this out if they actually wanted to have an Easter truce and both sides talk about it ahead of time rather than something unilateral. But I think it's just a political ploy. But there we are. Sorry, I didn't get into the 3 big stories. It happened while I was preparing the material for the 3 big stories for today, but that's the breaking news. Keep you updated and give you updates on it in the daily brief tomorrow. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.